Hello everybody, I'm Giuseppe Basilio, also known as the FibStalker. Thanks for watching this brief video. This is a daily and intraday review for today, April the 30th, 2018, and this video is part of the FibStalker Analysis and Trading Service. As usual, I'll ask you to read and accept the brief disclaimer here. This is a usual disclaimer. The information, including the commentary and trade ideas provided in this webinar, should not be relied upon as a substitute for extensive independent research, which should be performed before making your investment or trading decisions. So I'm merely providing this material for your general information. All right. So let's get into the market here. I want to review a few markets, starting from New Zealand dollar, US dollar here. As I mentioned, I was not anticipating the 50% here holding. At the moment still holding here the 61% level. The low is 70.85. The low is 70.30. The actual 61% level is just a fraction of pip below here. So I'll consider this holding here, but it doesn't mean that this is going to create a sizable reaction high. It could still react higher in this market, and that would be very welcome, because this could be a short. Now, when we look at the 4-hour time frame here, we don't see a lot of structure. Actually, we don't see structure at all, and this makes very difficult to identify a sequence of measured moves. Okay, so the only way we can trade this market is actively using dump money. Now, that said, I'm going to use a level here. It was a previous size, a 71.31, and let's see if the market follows up. But we would be, I would be looking for a retrace in the market from the 72.60 anchor to low, if that happens. The euro dollar also is moving lower, and here it has moved laterally in the last few sessions. Here we saw the low being tested, and then the market retested the highs of Friday's bar yesterday. So we're going to see whether this market is going to bounce here, put a double top and bounce. But apparently that opportunity was already tested. So either this market reacts here, or we probably could see a continuation lower. Now, if this market comes back, there are two levels we have to look at, and because this market is very extended, the first level we're going to look at is going to be lows to lows here. Okay, that would be a level if this market actually retraces. The reaction here can be considered from this traditional measure move here, and there's no 50% long here, so we'll see whether that's respected. If it's not respected, again, this market could come back into 122 level. Pound versus US dollar has also been weak here, and it has kept selling here like the euro. And in this market we seem to have a clean sequence of measured move here, and the extension played at the beginning of last week, bringing price into first and second target. So the next measured move is from the 139.17 to low, and that's the next measured move. If the market gets there and participates, we could see lower lows here into 136.30. Otherwise, again, like for the other markets, you could see a reaction higher, and we need to see which of these anchors is going to be used. For now, I'm going to use the same anchor that we used so far, and that would be the 138.91 level. Pound versus Canadian dollar. This market has continued lower here. Remember that this market has failed the sequence of measured moves, and if it comes back, one logical level on the 4-hour time frame to trade would be the extension here, lows to whatever new lows, and that's the 177.30. Okay, so it would just continue lower, and in that case the first level to be tested would be the 173.10. Now, you remember that for this market, we attempted a number of interpretation of the sequences here. So if we use this one, which is the same that I used yesterday in the weekly review, then the next 50% would see price into 178.30. Pound versus Australian dollar. This market has traded the extension short on the 4-hour here, the lows to lows. It's trading now and could keep pushing this price lower. Okay. Okay, the pound versus Japanese yen here. This market, on the other hand, it's also moving lower here, but it has retraced much less here respect to other markets. And as we can see here, when we look at the 4-hour here, we can trace the lows to lows, and that's what has traded here. It could be retested, and this could be a continuation, could be a trade short on the 4-hour time frame for a continuation lower. The New Zealand dollar, Japanese yen, this market is also moving lower. You remember that this market is in a range. You could retest the 76.36 here, and let's look at the 4-hour time frame here and try to look at what has traded so far. This market is obviously extended here. It started with very extended conditions, and the first level that's traded, then the same anchor has not brought to continuations here. And when we look at the initial anchor, it then never came into play. So this market continued in jumping extensions here, and as we can see, this level have not traded. So the last move here, we can see an anchor finally being identified, and as market moved into that second target, the next measured move comes from the lows to weather venue lows here for a continuation lower. Okay, so that's the extension short that we should consider is the 77.07 in this market. Pound versus Swiss franc. This market here is also retracing here, and for all this market that had this big move on fire, we're going to consider the extension short. So for this market, the extension short is 136.55. Let's have a look at the majors that we have not touched upon yet. The Australian dollar, US dollar here, after hitting that first target and hovering a few days around that area, seems to be retracing here. It has not tested the lows yet, so if this retrace is significant, it actually bring price into the next measured move, which is the highs to lows. However, this market is very, very extended here, so I do not anticipate it to retrace all the way into the 50%. And let me remove the previous trace here. The new lows are in, and this market is more likely going to retrace into a 50% of one of these two anchors. So for now, I'm going to use the lower anchor here, and that's what we're gonna use here. And then we leave the 76.68 on the chart. The strong moves lower have not allowed this structure on the 4-hour. This is a typical problem that can be solved with dump money, but we can. It's not necessary to make good gains. So let's look at the US dollar Canadian dollar here. You remember that I considered this pierced. This market is actually forming a kind of a rounded top here, and we know that the sellers are in this market, buyers came in here at the beginning of April, but there is still the potential for this market to continue lower. So the proof is going to be given by the violation of the extension long here. This market is extended here, so there is one anchor that needs to come into play, has not come into play yet. Maybe one of these two anchors here, and for now we're seeing this market moving lower. So on the 4-hour time frame, we actually have a prominent level here, but it never came into play, and we can use other level to try to explain price, and if we don't consider the 50% short here failed, then the actual failure of the move here just came here at 128.20. So this is an opportunity that is in play if we don't consider the shorts broken with that slightly pierce happened on the 27th here. This is an opportunity for a short in this market. All right. Okay, let's continue with the US dollar Swiss franc. Continued strength here in these markets, reflecting the continued strength of the dollar index, and we're actually not going to see this extension at 97.85 trade here. We mentioned that yesterday as well. I mean, this market is very, very strong. The dollar index might continue higher here, and the Swiss franc might do the same. It's in this big range, and it's going to come back into the higher part of this range here. So there's no measure move. Remember that the second target of the previous measure move was hit already. Is this one, and so this market can continue higher. Eventually will come and test the next measure move. But at the moment it's trading here, continues trading higher. We identified yesterday 98.18. That's a measure move that you can keep using. Similar here for the US dollar Japanese yen, which actually never traded the 108.65. We're going to keep that level up just in case it actually comes and trades. And on the 4-hour time frame here, same situation. We could use the low here, 2 highs, and that has pierced. So that's not a level we can use. There's not a lot of structure in this price, so there's not really a lot we can do. So we're going to use this extension 108.28 to suggest that this market could continue higher. So New Zealand dollar US dollar, we have reviewed that already, and I want to review the futures here, starting from the SP 500. The SP 500 is within this still big lateral move here, lateral mass, and the shorts here seems to be winning at the moment. And you remember that mid of April we had the 50% trading, and the opposing short here has not held anyway. The point is that the lack of participation of these bears, at least so far, kind of tilts the balance here towards the bears, and we'll see whether this market is going to recover. Is going to recover the sell-off of yesterday and retest the highs. Now this market obviously it's not telling a lot on these time frames because of the lateral move, right? So the only thing that is telling is that it could move lower again into the lows of this range here, and that would be the 26.12. Okay, So if this market moves tomorrow higher or during the Asian session here and European session into the 2661, that could be as a sell into the bottom of the of this channel, of this range, partial range here that we see. Okay, so that's an idea for tomorrow. Again, that's the trading idea here, 2662. If it's tested 50% from recent highs here on the 4-hour time frame, the market could get into this level and then move lower into the bottom of the channel here, the bottom of the range at the 2617. Dollar index, what we are seeing here, it's a continuation. It's a continuation higher so far, at least, and that's what the market action here, the price action here, is suggesting. Lower prices were rejected intraday here today, which suggests that this market could actually either retest the level or just continue higher, which would mean that it would bring down all the other markets. Okay. Gold is for the second time here challenging the second or the third time since the test here is challenging this level, and as we mentioned, if the dollar index continues higher, this market is going to continue lower. All right, and it could break that 1296, and same situation for silver, which is even weaker here. So we could see that 50% this week or next week at 1580 being tested finally after all these weeks of lateral move. And US dollar Singapore dollar is moving higher, confirming that move. It has also traded the measured move that we gave yesterday. That's the 50% long here from 132.34, and at this point, this could keep pushing this price higher into previous highs as we were considering, and the first and second target, even second target, into the 50% short here. All right. And I'm going to review the euro Japanese yen, because I know that some of you have or might have still this position here. There is a weekly short, and within the weekly short, yesterday was an extension short here. This is still in play and could push this market lower. I mean, the weekly, it's kind of pushing this price lower, and so far there was participation here, and this could continue lower as well. Okay, so this is it for this brief review. If you have any questions, you can post them in the room. Thanks for watching and have a good night. Bye bye now.